What's up, guys? Everyone, thank you for joining today. I'm really excited to get
Great.
started. Joel was mentioning, but before I begin, I also want to start by acknowledging that we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And where I am is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. I encourage everyone today to research what traditional lands they occupy. I also want to thank the team at Folk Music Ontario and my pals at SOCAN for hosting this talk and for all of you joining us remotely today. Without further ado, I know everyone's here to hear William, not myself. I want to welcome the incredible William Prince today for our Songwriting Masterclass. Thank you, William, for joining us.
Well, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, let me see you. Might not be able to hear you. I think you might be muted.
1, 2, check 1, 2.
One
Hello.
second. Joel, do you want to see if you can unmute William? Oh, you can hear him.
Somebody
This
says.
might be me then. 1 second. Okay. Sounds like I can hear him now. Can you chat just one
1,
more time?
2, check 1, 2.
Perfect. Sorry about that. I had my
No worries.
into something else. Not to embarrass you, I have a little bit of a bio that I want to read off the top just for people that are tuning in, maybe not as familiar with your work or familiar with a couple pieces of your music. So after honing his craft for over a decade, William, in just a few short years, has risen to the top of Canada's songwriting world thanks to an honest and powerful approach to his work. The singer-songwriter took home a Contemporary Roots Juno Award in 2017 for his incredible debut album, Earthly Days. At the top of this year, he released his sophomore project, Reliever, to critical acclaim as well. The opening song on that project, The Spark, also snagged William a 2020 SOCAN Songwriting Prize. Alongside his solo work, William also performs alongside Vince Fontaine and Don Amaro in the folk rock group Indian City. I'm pleased and honored to welcome him here today. William, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm great.
Where are you coming from us right now?
I'm home in Winnipeg right now.
Right on. And I know it's obviously we love to doing this. Normally we'd love to do this in person, but obviously just with COVID and things that have transpired this year, we've had to do it virtually. I do want to talk about this year in particular and how that's affected your songwriting, but maybe in a nutshell, how have you been doing this year? Obviously you haven't been able to perform as much. How have you been keeping sane and just keeping your head clear this year?
Oh, it's been truthfully about the same as any other year. Staying focused. A big part of it has been focusing on my health for the past while. There were a number of times where I said if I could just find the time where I had to be home in a way, almost willing something like this, a pause of sorts.
Mm,
I started out the year saying that 2020 would be the year of clarity, and I think that's come to pass as we see now our health and those connections we have with people we care about. That's what's really important right now. So my journey started out pretty much like everybody else's, where it was a bit of disbelief at first, and then the NBA shut down and the Junos were canceled, and I had a number of friends. It was acquaintances their year there, so everything changing, the graduations, and so it was a real serious moment to contemplate all of that. And I'm fortunate where I can kind of not reclusive, I guess, but I'm very much happy being home when I'm here, and the time it's had to provide a balance and a bit more routine with my son. This is the highlight of 2020. I've been saying it everywhere I go. He learned how to ride a bike, and that's been our big thing. And going for walks and just taking a moment to focus on all of that. I think working on every avenue of myself while trying so hard to make music the thing that you're most are taken most seriously for, and to do any work when you're starting out, it's nice now to take a second and work on my health because it wasn't always priority. And being First Nations, we have a predisposition to heart disease, and diabetes runs in my family. And I just think of the big picture things, like what's the point of all, you know, the opportunity and getting to make music and any accolade you can attach to that. It doesn't really matter if you're not there to live it out in the best days when something's established. I was just getting used to the idea of people in different cities all the time. That's a huge path to kind of cross when you're starting out, venturing out. And I'm always thinking about the future when we return to that. And so I've just tried to stay productive with writing and turning some of that energy inward, thinking of I've spent all the years of my son's life on the road. So it was nice to be here with him and my partner and drink tea and listen to great music. And I know we talked more about what we're losing, but it's funny how this time feels like I'm gaining a lot of things in this kind of slowdown period. And I say that with great privilege because I think of all my friends who, you're a drummer in three bands and you're hoping that at least one of those bands are always working, and, lessons, even people being separated, like this is the people industry. And so preserving, I guess, a hope for, as far as humanity goes, I think we've made it through pretty much all the things. And I think we're going to make our way through this one as well. It's just taking a little longer than we had anticipated. So
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do in worrying and trying to control things out of, within your control. So that's a
Yeah.
part of grace, and just thinking, grant me the serenity to live through this right now, even though I can't do much about it. And there's still a lot of good things close to home right here, right in the front and backyard.
I love that. I think you kind of nailed it on the head there. If we're lucky enough to have our health and our families and our loved ones' health during this year, it's kind of forced us to slow down in many ways. And I'm going to slow down in my chat with you a little bit and kind of go all the way back to your upbringing and when you fell in love with music. I'm curious to know. I know you said that you've grown up in a gospel upbringing, but your family. I read in an interview that your family also ran a DJ business on the side.
Yeah, that was a great part of it. My mom and dad, it's a common thing in Manitoba. I've learned it's not a normal thing everywhere, but the wedding social. I don't know if you know that concept. I don't know if it goes over to parts of Ontario or Saskatchewan or not, but it's quite the foreign concept to some, where there are these big parties before people get married where your family and friends come together and they do like a silent auction and buy out the bar to help you essentially pay for your wedding. And those things always need music. So that's where the DJ business, while I thought it was the coolest thing in the world that my mom and dad had music all the time, it really was just more a means to an end. My dad figuring out how to generate more income on top of his, you know, government work, and just keeping a family fed and clothed. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the sitter wouldn't line up, and it's the difference between, a 500, $600, $400 job. I don't know what the time inflation would be now, but
Sure.
it surely made a difference. And I know what it's like to haul gear to a club or a hall late. Thankfully now I travel light. I'm just myself and a guitar and whatever, merch I can bring in one arm. And but the thought of bringing a PA and setting it up and playing music for somebody's pre-wedding party. That led to a lot of music in the house and a lot of mixtape making, and exposed me to a lot of great stuff that I think just starts to build music into your DNA in a way.
100%. I was going to say that they're two very distinct worlds musically, like sonically, gospel, and what would be going on through the mixtapes. How have they? I know you kind of touched upon it a little bit. It sounds like it's influenced and prepared you maybe for your professional career, just with knowing how to mentally and physically get through a gig. But how have those two worlds, maybe more so on the music side, the sonic side, influenced your songwriting?
Well, there's great structure to be learned, rhythm to be found inside of gospel music. You think back to where Hank Williams would have started, and all those greats that my peers consider kind of the structure of this realm of writing, and that all stems from a gospel root, and a lot of the greatest music does. I think of like Southern church music, and there's a different way, different sound as you get to Northern gospel in a way, and that's where we grew. It was a bit of emulation, truthfully. One of my favorite things that is like we imitate what we love at the beginning, right? And so it would have been a lot of different First Nations people learning these, Christian gospel songs when truthfully, like Christianity and gospel music were used as this tool of colonization and assimilation, to instill kind of a meter of good and bad and someone to answer to and live up to. And to take that, it's kind of a negative stigma and just see it for what it is at the heart. And like, there's a lot of great music in there. And that was the thing that always drew me was, I first experienced music totally sonically. I talk about Paul Simon's Graceland was my first real connection with music. And it was because I heard it through giant speakers at one of those dances that my mom and dad would have been hosting, would have been doing the music for. And like I say, when the sitter doesn't work out, you sleep under the table sometimes, it's or like my mom would drive out there and pick up the equipment but have to bring us, and we would just kind of wait out the last hour. I have a little sister as well, and she was as much part of that as I was. So taking those two worlds, right, putting them together, like learning structure from great gospel music and rhythm and the importance of that. You must walk before you run. A lot of the frustration and maybe giving up your instrument or music in general is trying to do too much at the start, when it's like you need a foundation of sorts. And all of that was built upon the chord family of D major, A, and G. All great songs are three chords and the truth is a well-known saying in the songwriting community. And a great Jason Isbell lyric that just came out was, when you sing about the truth, you find that it rhymes with everything. That's another great kind of thing to take from that. And so taking that gospel music and then combining it with those earlier things, like what do I need to make this song deliver and have that effect, and like the drums and the snare and layering. I guess I was appreciating good mixes as a kid, because I was like, I want the drums here, I want this, this way. And learning how to sing, learning how to record, all those come from great recordings, listening to my dad's favorites where these baritone singers ring out over great classical compositions. I think of Christofferson stuff with his string attachments, and Hank Snow. When you think of crisp storytelling like Willie Nelson, all these familiar names that I've spoken about before, Charlie Pride and John Fogerty. That music made its way to the reserves, and so the gospel kind of came from, well, I'm going to do my best version of Charlie Pride's version of this song. I'm going to try this in a way. And so I think getting a foundation, and then truthfully just reading and appreciating poetry is what led to song crafting. And that's taking a bit of what you know from feel and audio and then putting it towards, well, this is how songs generally work, and now say something that hasn't been said in a different way.
Yeah, and you were just touched upon it a bit. Your kind of genesis in the poetry world of things. Obviously, you had this incredible foundation musically, but and I know you said that your dad played guitar around the house, but you started primarily as a poet first. You wrote a lot of poetry in high school, and obviously, I don't have to tell anybody on the call right now. We know how important the word is in folk rock, but what was the spark for you to maybe transition from strictly a poetry path and kind of add those melodic elements to it later on and really kind of hone your early songwriter?
Truthfully, it was just the musicality catching up with the word, perhaps. I was trying to learn all of each. I owe a lot to being studious, just kind of in school, because my original intention was to go to med school and, hopefully become a doctor. The whole plan was to get off the reserve because if you do well enough, they will provide, basic funding to pay your rent and tuition and books. And to me, that just sounded like the greatest opportunity to, I love Peguis First Nation where I come from, but the opportunity is limited there. And my dad and my mom spoke on that early in my life, saying you have to go to university. And that was just them with their best advice. Post secondary will eventually lead to a place that you can make something with more than just a job. You have a career, you have something to fall back on. And so that was always the safety net. So while I was in university trying to get into medicine and do these different things, music was always kind of playing in the background of my mind. What was
Yeah.
your question at the start, just before?
Oh, I was just curious to know what the actual spark was.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So the poetry, I guess, I say this very loosely. You should never call yourself a poet. Somebody else should. And from that, it's like I was just learning rhyme. I think I was a rhyme enthusiast, and I loved a lot of music, and from that, appreciated song structure. I think I just consumed so much. I had all the embarrassing phases of loving different stuff, but the great stuff that I did enjoy, it stuck with me in that healthy way. So when finally musicality caught up to the words is when I started to feel like more songs were coming together, and I was playing more music and had hard rock aspirations. I thought that was the thing. I grew up right in the great, you know, beginnings of all Canadian alt rock, and heavy tuning down to drop B and C, open guitar, heavy alt stuff, and that was everything to me. So it's funny to be the pastor's kid and playing these funeral services, old hymns, and then I come home and every note of a Linkin Park record, and you're just like, I am hybrid theory. I am, this kind of thing. And it goes back to that whole we imitate what we love at the beginning until we basically find our own footing. So it comes at you in all spaces. And I think if that thing is there with you, you can't ignore it. I just started typing. I just started kind of skipping my breaks because we didn't have a computer at home, and I just thought it was so much quicker to use the computer at school to kind of write things down. So this loosely termed poetry eventually started to make more musical sense once I was a better guitar player.
And you were saying it, when you moved from Peguis and you started to, experience like hard rock. I read that like your first record was an Our Lady Peace record that you bought, a first CD. So
Yeah.
you're going through this evolution as a songwriter early, um, and I kind of wanted to touch upon your debut record. I know this is a few years later. I read that it was almost like a decade in the making of writing these works and collecting these works. At one point, first of all, I want to know kind of what you were going through as you wrote as you wrote those tracks, but I want to know when you knew that the body of work was complete and ready to be heard by the world. Because I always ask songwriters, like, when do you know the song is ready? Because theoretically you could just keep tinkering it, especially in the producing process. Once you've actually written the song, you can kind of tinker it all over. But for your debut work, you've been writing this material for a decade. When did you know it was ready to be sent out into the world?
When Peg was First Nation gave me some funding to make the record, that's when I knew. It was it was great. It's not like I wasn't not trying to get an album out. I ran into so many obstacles and got the great hard knock lessons of the industry early. Don't pay for too much up front when you're not guaranteed the work's going to be done. That was a lesson I had to learn that really set me back and was quite discouraging. And even more so that it was by a family friend who's a supposed enthusiast and is married to a folk singer, and to go from that to basically taking advantage of me not knowing enough and trying to be 20 years old and make a record because these songs need to be heard right now because I'm just that excited from writing. But the truth is, I wasn't a great singer yet. The songs needed some seasoning, some time. I'm so glad I grew up in the era where everything wasn't online just yet. But I was really proud of this YouTube channel I had where, check out my 47 original songs on this YouTube through my webcam, but my voice isn't that great, and they're pop country songs or pop songs of a certain degree. I'm just trying to flex whatever, insignificant muscle I have at that time to show that I'm a serious writer. And it's not quantity. You can do things in quiet. You can do them behind the scenes. It doesn't make you any less serious. I've learned now that you are more an artist off the stage than you are in that hour or 90 minutes that you're there in the spotlight. And it's a constant collection. And sometimes I get rolling too much, and then I forget where we were headed, Aidan. If you could prompt me again,
That's totally fine. No,
to
I
start.
mean, it's no, all of that was amazing. Yeah, I was just curious to know at what point, you've been um, writing and manicuring this work for a decade.
Yes, the preparation. So
Yeah.
the preface, it comes from wanting to have this album and going through that discouraging point, a particularly trying time in a personal relationship, dealing with my dad's declining health at all times. Pardon me. I think about, he had complete kidney failure and underwent a triple bypass and lost his legs due to diabetes complications. I had the joy of watching exactly how I'm going to die if I don't take care of myself. And I thought that now is the time that I need to get something into the world because you say that you want this more than anything. You say that these things mean the most to you, but why don't you have an album out yet? Why does your friend who's only played guitar for like 3, 4 years have an album out now that's totally changed his life and basically given him everything you thought that, everything you were hoping for? And I tried to lighten up on myself a little bit because I was challenged by great circumstance, these different things. It's hard to do anything when you don't have the means. You know, um, when you're struggling to pay your auto insurance and your cell phone's getting cut off every couple months and you gotta call whoever and work out an emergency situation. Oh, I just forgot, but and these things can eat away at you. That's just, you know, the challenge of life. And I was always kind of dealing with that because I had turned from this path of medicine where I thought I'll become a doctor, I'll have this money, it'll make me respected in the community. People will automatically assume I'm intelligent and respectable, because of the stigmas around being a large First Nations man in this country sometimes, and wanting to be a best foot forward for the community as well as myself. I saw that as the ticket to salvation, to relief for those I care about. And as hard as it was to turn away from that, to say, I want to do this for real. I want to make an album. It suddenly becomes more focused. So I ended up moving to China at the advice of my friend who saw me suffering and dealing with a great amount of things and said, come get your confidence back. Come restore yourself a bit and be a substitute teacher over here. And from that, I built more songs and finally came home with a better plan, thinking that now's the time. You do 71 gigs in 110 days of your allowable visa. I found good fortune where I was able to play 6 nights a week, doing an hour of Western covers and an hour of my own. And it was great. I say I didn't spend a lot of time in a van or a small car playing bars where you're yelling over the crowd of a Palomino in Calgary or, somewhere really hard like that. I think of some of my dear friends and acquaintances who do that all the time. And so that time in China, I guess, kind of condensed this lesson and upped my abilities. And so when I got back, I felt I was finally ready to make this record. I said, I can't give up on my music career before having any music in the world. That'd be, then that would really be for nothing. And I'm so thankful that right at the gate, right before I took my step into the world, my acquaintance grew to friendship with my dear friend and collaborator, producer Scott Nolan. And he kind of bestowed upon me a knowledge and saying, you should tap into the power that you possess, which is your slower demeanor. And, you're under the influence of pop radio. You think that everything is the alto soprano leading, 6 layers of chorus with a harmony behind it. And so kind of unlearning those things to say, let's tap into the organic roots of what you got going on here and see what happens. And I said, well, thank you for suggesting that because I'm tired of playing loud. I'm tired of trying to make up space because it's always been just me and my voice. And you think that strumming louder and singing louder will command people's attention, but what commands people's attention is inviting them to actually listen. And with that, you'll get more back from their audience because they're in tune. Rather than listen to me now, it's rather bring it to a level where I'm only going to sing to my comfort. I grew up writing these songs in apartments where you're not allowed to be loud after 11. And so I know what it is to be quiet. And you're telling me I have all this wattage and this beautiful theater to be as loud as I want. Watch what happens when we dial it into this quiet presence. And so my songs were just kind of captured in that way where you didn't get the overdub-itis in the studio, more didgeridoos, that walk hard. And it's like, let's stick to what this is. And my friend Jamie Sitar said he's a great mix engineer who's done great songs, great mastering for a number of great bands in Canada. And he said, if we're going to make this into a production, this is a film. And your voice is the lead in this. So how do we accompany, how do we support and lift? And that's what great music does. And I'm glad I had those kind of gatekeepers to refine what I had before making a first impression. So I owe a lot to the community around me.
I think that's incredible advice, and you were talking about refining your approach and kind of switching up your mental approach to the songs that you're writing. Also, just as an aside, I want to just let all of our attendees know that I will save some time at the end of our chat for questions. I know some people are already brimming with some excitement about some questions to ask William. So definitely hold those to the end. I'll be sure to get to as many people as I can. But I wanted to talk about what your process actually looks like. So we talked about the headspace that you're in when you were writing your debut project. But and I know this is a little bit more inside baseball-y, but I'm sure for all the songwriters that are on the call right now, they want to know exactly what do you do? Do you jot down? Is it lyrics first? Is it melody first at this point? I know you're coming from a place, obviously, of poetry, so it might be lyrics first. But what does it look like when an idea comes to your head? Are you jotting down on notes? Are you kind of diddling on the guitar? Does it switch up?
Yeah, it's great. I'll show you the greatest songwriting tool in my arsenal that never lets me down. These great Canadian Hilroy notebooks. They can't be beat. This is where it all started. This is where, the creative writing and the stories all began and stuff like this. And
We're not sponsored by Hillroy, right, William?
yeah, yeah, this is, man, if
This
that
is
could
straight from
happen,
you. Yeah.
this is a free one. So if you want to send me more notebooks, I'll put them to good use. That's always a great accomplishment is when I need to go buy a new 3-pack. But I find now over time that is the most common question is to quantify the process. There's no real puddle you step in. There's no wizard at the crossroads of life. It's really about your own collection. I say that everything is B-roll. Shoot everything, and we'll sort it out later. People yelling in the street over there. Stay out of it, but listen. And it's just it's kind of collecting these human experiences that lead to the editing room of seeing things, and I try to see. Gosh, this is going to sound so in the stratosphere, but it's just like it's almost like looking with total peripheral vision at things and collecting these sights and sounds and how you react to them, smells. It's a total sensory cornucopia to process a song, and I think that's what connects with people. So it starts with that, with great collection. I'm always listening, trying to. And then it goes from recording into the iPhone if you want a more structured idea of it. I like to, for a long time, I was doing a lot of melody and then words after. But in the last couple of years, I wrote a lot for Reliever to get it to its final 11. And I found a lot of it was like these like sporadic kind of musings that I would speak until they ran out into my iPhone and go back and work them out. But now it's been a little more along the lines of I want to have some forethought into this story. And if we're going to get into these more kind of songs like the Carney, for instance, a more story progressive tune, I really like those ones. I have those songs for days, I like to say, and I'm trying to balance them with other things. Like there are great things. I've been through a lot of the heavy stuff, grief and loss of relationship and so much painful transformation. And it's now that I'm curious to sing about joy, to sing about love again in a different way, where it's not a panicked recovery or something negative to do with that. Not that I ever was. I just sang to the true melancholy of my life at that time. That's what songwriters should be doing is staying 100% current and representing who you are in those moments. I've really come to appreciate the idea of writing in seasons. I've been in these neat seasons of preparing the next records and thinking, writing in the notebook, recording them to the iPhone, and then listening back to myself. That's the reward, is if I can, get a good few minutes of something, and honestly, like you find a good verse and a chorus, and I'll do a 6-minute cut of that, so I'm almost learning it by, the auditory way as well as, picturing it as a future song, and then you start to feel it a little bit more. So I sound like a spacious narcissist. I'm always listening to myself, but that's truthfully how it goes. I'm trying to uh, build as much as I can right now, and it's still so fun. Truthfully, I love going working for it. Mary Gaucher says, "Thank God writing good songs is hard." I love the challenge. I like digging deep for something. I think my musicality is improving. I've been doing a lot of just rudimentary basic finger picking patterns. That's going to change. I've always loved artists like John Moreland, and you think of the sharpness of like Bruce Cockburn and gosh, Neil Young and Gordon Lightfoot, these guys, these great players. John Prine, rest in peace, the great John Prine, who I learned basically plays like this and made me feel less bad that I play like that. You know, it's not, I'm not a five finger dynamo by any means yet. I'm not a Mike T. Kerr just yet. I'm thinking of myself and how I develop again that musicality, not getting complacent with staying there. The great guitarists of the world still take lessons and still are always open to learning. So that's where I'm trying to be now, is to really brave my way into different territory. You know, we've seen what I can do where I'm quietly trying to express these things. And now it's like, what territory can we reach with, you know, maybe the harmony and melody lifting people up in the way that those great songs do. And that's what all my historical exploratory listening does. Like, how do you write Crocodile Rock like once, you know, like just these great biopics that we've seen, you just highlight the greatness of these songs. I've been doing so much listening to different albums, like Rumors has been the big one because Dreams is taking over the internet again. And like, God, you think of that album, like you kind of take them for granted to be heard, but I love now finding records that I've sort of heard and know a little bit about. And yeah, you know, these five from the radio, but I am all for the album as a whole. Like I almost insist that please listen to my records as a whole. Like I part of the story or over time, and like gosh, what a range on that record. And I'm in search of my great record still. I'm glad that that's an ongoing journey, and I think if you're always aware of that you can improve, that's a good base to have for wanting your songwriting to get better. And so, and it's being conscious of everything. What words have I talked about a lot lately? What am I doing again, you know? And from that, I think you stay clear of getting redundant or repetitive. And I like that I've kind of made records in seasons and by feel. Like Earthly Days was very much the earth, the people I'm around, the roots, and then Reliever was fire, and then we're transitioning into a whole new place. And I like that these kind of elements are finding their way to the surface through me. I guess that's just part of my First Nations heritage, being a person who is always in conversation with the cosmos and giving thanks and gratitude. These songs are gifts. I think of it that way. I have no other way to quantify it. Like I say, there's no real workshop I can give to say this is how. It's 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 all about getting in touch with your empathy, and the more that you are allowing yourself to remove from situations and let them to be on you while still setting boundaries so that you're not ruined by the world. That's where great songs come from. And you keep in mind the principle that a lot has been said, and it's up to the writers to do something new to keep propelling us forward and to say more. And especially now, this is a very important time where a lot of human rights are at issue. The Black Lives Matter, and it's just highlighting again the relationship with First Nations people in this country. I sorry to get off tangent here. It just kind of leads me because I'm so inspired by my partner who's been taking the University of Alberta Indigenous Canada course with Dan Levy and all these great things around me. It's all part of it. If you're just song, 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 if you're just quantity, if you're just check out this for the sake of checking out, if you're just rushing through a song so you can record it and put it on the internet, that's not healthy nor helpful, I think, to both parties. I'm glad that I finally removed all that stuff at the advice of a great Manitoba music panel where they said, you're pretty great in person, but your internet presence doesn't reflect that. You should just axe all that. I know it looks great to have 50 songs out there, but I'm so glad now that you're not hearing those 50 because I really needed to get those out of the way to start refining this thing. And let's make whiskey, not beer, you know. Not that I don't love good beer, but I'm just saying, like, it's a little bit more craft, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, some gems were dropped there for sure. I want to talk
Sheesh,
about.
man. I mean to take breaks. I'm so sorry.
Please, no. I mean, people are here to listen to you speak, so by all means. And I know I'm looking at the chat now, and a lot of people are already chiming in about all the great things you're saying. You're talking about some amazing people in your life, your partner. Another source of joy for you is your son Wyatt. I know where you were saying that you're trying to when you had him, you were trying to stray away from writing like cheesy dad songs.
Yeah.
Are there any other like challenges where you want to maybe you want to address like the feelings you're going through, the themes you're dealing with, but you're trying to like stray away from maybe the kind of cheesy tropey version of that? Like, is there any advice you have to maybe emoting those feelings, but like how do you balance the tropey themes of some of those things, or do you?
Oh, I don't. I think it's just again, it just you either succumb to them or you don't. I think I try my best to. I guess I don't know. I'm always placing this like importance that everything I say carries great weight in the world, and so this is not to knock because I am the biggest lover of like great EDM music, dance pop, Watermelon Sugar is like one of the best songs ever. It's fantastic in what it does. I love it. And I appreciate talent and place and song for all occasions. So it's like, I don't need to worry too much about that. I used to have really big country dreams. I really thought that all those Luke Combs songs you'd be hearing right now would be mine one day, or that the great Tim McGraw would finally sing one of mine. And that was a big focus for me because I thought there's no way that I'm gonna get there. I'm never gonna be Tim McGraw. I'm never gonna be on some arena like that stage. Like I just didn't see it for me, and it had a lot to do with lacking confidence, just image stopping. And as I sighed from it again, you're saying avoid the kind of more
Oh, I mean, i
simple
think
things.
i think you
It's
kind of nailed it. Yeah.
it's more just with how I try to conduct myself. You really become the people that you hang around, and I'm fortunate that I'm just surrounded by such great, thoughtful, like people who are feelers and empaths and smart, passionate people, and that community keeps me in check and has this great way. My sister always there for me, and my mom just surrounded. I'm lucky to be. I am the people that support me. A lot of that, and trying to be my better self all the time. And so it avoids that for me. It helps me. I try to now I try to imagine like if Neil Young were sitting in front of me right now, would I feel okay playing this? That's a really great indicator for a lot of things that have come out now. I am the biggest Neil Young fan now that I find. The first time I really experienced Neil Young on a grander scale was from 20 feet away. Our first night in Boston together. I knew Neil as Keep On Rockin' in the Free World. And it wasn't really my thing. It was a pretty good song. But then to learn, like, man, this is like one of the folk grandfathers, man. This is the keeper of that stuff. And I was late to the game, but I've done nothing but again historical listening and seeing we where his career and his seasons have taken him. You think of if there's an artist who never rests on anything and will throw you a curveball right as you're about thinking that something's steady and normal, it's Neil. And I think of that's the kind of artist I want to be. I hope that people see every album as a chapter rather than this is the new whatever. I
I
wasn't much
love
a
that.
fan. I wasn't much a fan of William Prince's reggae days. It's never. I don't think it's ever going to be that.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of changing, and I have no shortage of great influence in my life. I start to think about Joni Mitchell. I haven't even really delved into the world of open tunings yet. I played in drop D, drop open D, everything, drop C for the first 10 years of my guitar life, where it was, size 60 strings and tuning down and different effects pedals, and like, how do we just buzzsaw our way through everything? And that blooms into this place of refining your playing. And Scott and I talk about, as you get older, you tend to maybe play quieter and stuff. And I think that's like, again, I talked about the gatekeeping, kind of fast forwarding that knowledge to me, saving me the trouble of working through all this stuff. And then you got 3 albums that you never want to play because you were just getting to this point of where you're at. And I'm really happy with the songs on Earthly Days. I think that I'll still be singing them sometime from now.
For sure.
And
I wanted to bounce back to the experience with Neil. You say you have this humble approach of learning every day, and having a willingness and openness to learn and refine your skills as a songwriter and guitar player and musician. But that moment in particular, like playing back to back with, or playing 2 dates with Neil, did you just kind of have like a moment where you acknowledge your own success? Do you have those moments? Do you think they're important as a writer to acknowledge that, like, okay, like I'm doing something well, like the cosmos is rewarding me?
mhm. Truthfully, in 2 different ways. If you want to talk about that night specifically, I sat with my best friend. Um, he's a teacher in China, and he comes back in the summers, and just so happened, he never gets to see me play, but got to see me play that show, and like, what a show to see. And we were there together, and I kind of had this moment where Neil was playing. Oh gosh, every song was something different. Just seeing, the circle of guitars, and then you go to the pianos and up in this like catalog that just spans history. And yeah, there was a moment of emotion where I felt like, man, this is nothing inauthentic here. All I did was sing, and we're sitting side stage now watching this show. And that was a great moment of victory because of what it did. Being a Winnipegger, I think that was a really great thing. Tying back to Neil's roots here and going to high school and starting out young here, and his ties to what was the Blue Note Cafe before my time. I don't want to speak too much on that just because it's out of my era, but the community is very much enriched by Neil's history and presence here. And so it was kind of like 2 Winnipeggers in Boston for a second, and to even be kind of held in that same breath for a second, um, it was really quite special. Sorry, I'm distracted. Geek Squad keeps calling me nonstop through this thing. I'm having a TV uninstalled, and
Oh man, no stress.
but I was thinking about, yes, in that moment, I was emotional, thinking that, wow, here are all these songs I've heard on the radio, and now I get to see the guy in person, do it for real and do the show his way while they're shouting all these classic songs. Old Man Down by the River. He plays song 9 from an album 30 years ago, and it's like, because that's what I'm feeling that night. And that was really inspiring, just being yourself and just how incredibly gracious everybody on that crew was. I got to spend time with his manager Elliot before he passed last year, I believe it was, and just growing our relationship that way. With getting to see a piece of that history was special, and then it just kind of flows through, I guess, the community. Like, wow, we're proud of you, and everybody in Peguis who. He's got the people that love all the Dwight Yoakam and the CCR and the Neil Young. And are you kidding, man? That feels like I'm there doing it. I'm officially 1 degree because of you. Like, that's the feeling that's given off. No one's patting me on the back for being 1 degree, but I'm just saying, like, it feels like a win for everybody around me, much like winning a Juno felt when, you know, it represents a lot of time and people. And so when those things come to pass, gosh, I rejoice in the excitement of those around me. It's about the only way I'm comfortable doing it. I guess I'm still embracing the idea that this is for real. I was listening CBC this morning, kind of that the idea of like an imposter syndrome and stuff. I wouldn't say I was full-fledged afflicted or anything like that. It was just knowing that most of my life I kind of had this preconception, you know, it was instilled by my dad, giving me the heads up on how the world really works. And that's like, I'm sorry to tell you this, son, but because of you being a First Nations kid, people might think less of you right out the gate. It doesn't matter, you know. And truthfully, there's a bit of an extra bit of work that needs to be done. And I know I felt it in a bit of the parallels to, like, say, Charlie Pride again, who people didn't know he was a black singer singing with this incredible voice. And you walk into this auditorium and there's the guy, and it's a black gentleman singing these incredible songs with this country crooning voice. And I feel like that's the reaction to when I do things sometimes now. It's like, wow, like, where are you from? And I've had that kind of look, like, it's not without say, it doesn't say it, but it's like, you're really great for a First Nations guy, you know, never heard one sing like that before, you know, that kind of a thing. And that's great. I'm glad there's a shock and awe to it, but, you know, never, ever, ever underestimate First Nations people. Never for a second. I it may seem like I'm one in 10,000, but it's only because I had a great foundation that a lot of First Nations people don't, and that's homes affected by alcoholism, substance abuse, sexual abuse, the constant unveiling of mistreatment that we're seeing in this country that, again, draws its own similarities to the uprising of the Black Lives Matter movement, and kind of exploring that just below the floorboards of this country, that we're, at least we're not like America, at least we're not that ignorant. And it's like, I hate to break it to you, but there's a big mess in the backyard. And it's, you know, the plan the put in place to extinguish me and my family. And songwriting became so much more than just jingles and radio. It became my way to prove myself in this world in some way, in a way that can't be taken away or doctored. If whatever place on the billboard or whatever award it wins is decided by a really great jury of white people who treat me like a white artist, yes, thank you. Judge me based solely on my art and my merit, you know, in that way. I love the enthusiasm for heritage, but that's something we can discuss in a different way, a different time. And yeah, so we're working on all those things. Where were we headed again, Aiden? I
Yeah,
didn't
no,
mean to.
100%. I was actually, you were addressing what I was going to ask you about next. Obviously, these are some issues that are kind of woven through the music that you make with Don and Vince. I wanted to ask more about how your approach and how your songwriting world changes when you're writing with a group. Um,
Yeah, you know, if I could stop you there, Aiden, that's a bit of that's almost trivia from the earliest days. You know, my Indian City and I love that that gathering. I owe a big nod to Vince Fontaine and his presence in my career. When I didn't really have many gigs, he kept me in the Winnipeg Free Press by doing various shows, and you know, join Indian City with my friends, you know, kind of like a indigenous broken social scene. You know, you join for a little while and you're in there as a collective. But I'm so proud of the work I did on the Super Nation and Colors album. That's my those were my first ribbons, I'd say, you know. And learning music in a group setting that way was great. Playing again, it wasn't too foreign. It was fun to be a part of that. But Vince and I always knew. He even saw it and he knew it. He's like, one day you'll step away from this. And I just want to be there to support you and help you now. You know, put a little cash in your pocket, he'd say. And that was, man, I couldn't tell you what $150 from an Indian City gig would do some weeks. It was everything. It saved everything for me. And I'm forever grateful to those guys, gals, people.
Right on. Yeah. Sort of similarly, I wanted to ask because you're a songwriter performer, but there might be some people on the call that are strictly writers looking to pitch for other artists. Is that something? Are you constantly writing, and maybe do you pitch for other writers as well? Do you do top line for other people? And if so, what's that headspace look like?
Again, I said I kind of started on that journey. That was my hope for everything. I reference Gordy Sampson so much because I feel like he's got the perfect setup. You know, Gordy Sampson wrote "Jesus Take the Wheel," a little country song by Carrie Underwood, and from that, I imagine it gains you this stability forever. I think most of us know how royalties and publishing different things work and all that stuff. I'm sure a hit Carrie Underwood song does pretty well for somebody, and I feel like that would allow this liberation where it doesn't matter what I do and to whatever size of people, at least I have like one song paying the bills and I can just go play to nobody. But the universe gave me more than that. I'm shortchanging myself. Like I think of the people that support me, and that's incredible in itself. But thinking of landing that big country song started to shift as I gained more control and power. Not control, but just like more affirmation in that I was good enough. There was no one around to sing my songs. And while refining them in those coffee shops and doing all those things, I eventually learned how to sing better and made a record from it, and people and it took a number of years to like, man, this is really, I can just be myself. I can write my own songs. They don't need to be those big country bangers to make people feel something. You know, I'm never gonna be the power of a Drake song. Like I'm one of the biggest Drake fans in the world. But that's just different realms. The power of those great pop songs, these great symphonies of sound. Listening to David Bowie yesterday. Putting more song titles to songs I've just heard in the fog of my mind and experiencing music. And like, yes, there's so much more to learn from those pioneering acts. Like you can never listen to the Beatles enough, I think. That's where my heart's been. Listening to a lot of classical and jazz lately, stuff without lyrics, just to kind of, all right, we're wading in the water. We're doing something, whether it be by osmosis or, music is there working for you. It's nice to have with Wyatt around too. He can experience great things, other things
Mm.
besides the radio. It's my responsibility. I think of all the music my mom and dad had in the house, and that's the only reason I have somewhat good taste. This is not to say I, I didn't love Silver Side Up by Nickelback when I was 15, one time ago. And I'm proud of all those things. Well, proud's a strong word, but I'm okay with those things. I always thought that was going to be some great shame later in life. Oh man, you know, Juno winner was once 15 and liked alternative rock, and take it all away from him. But there's no one really wishing that ill upon me, I don't think. And yeah,
Yeah, amazing. We're kind of closing down to the last half hour here, so I definitely want to
sure.
save some time for our attendees. But just one last question for me. I love the idea of chapters, seeing each album as a chapter in your life. And you're mentioning, some of these great artists, Bowie and the Beatles, who have very like defined chapters. Obviously, you just dropped an album at the top of February, so it's still very fresh. It's an incredible album. If, everybody here, if you haven't already listened to it, definitely check it out. But what does this next chapter look like for you? So this, this musical baby is out in the world. Are you constantly writing this year? Are you taking a bit of a writing break? Are you looking towards like the next couple of years? uh, as your third album kind of out there on the horizon, or what does this next chapter look like for you as a writer performer?
The next Vic, it continues on like anything, I suppose. Like I said, I've been around the earth. I've discussed that. We kind of discussed fire and transformation with the spark and getting past things that are no longer, the life of my father and my son's mother and I, whom happy to report, we're great friends. All those things, getting healthier, healing, truly finding, again, some power and just stability for however long it lasts. I'm nowhere near my greatest hits retirement time, so I would like to get back to work one of these years. Let's get her let's get her going into 2021 even. That'd be lovely. But the next part I think is, well, let's just call it the water, and then kind of moving again to letting things be and in the air around, accepting that we're doing this for real each and every day. We're here right now with SOCAN discussing songs. This is absolutely everything I could have pictured and hoped for one day in terms of being taken as a serious writer. I think I'm just missing the obnoxious millions, and then I think I'll be one of the greats. But no, I think my promise is that I'm going to become even more empathetic to the things around me and try my hardest to push myself in terms of the musicality and exploring all these things. I'm happy to report that the songs are healthy. It hasn't been a stagnant time. It's been some of the greatest finishing time for, half songs and creating new stuff inspired by the surroundings. Again, that's one half. The love and great things I get to experience now. Living through this world event. There's no COVID project coming, you know. Oh,
Yeah, I think that's an incredible way to look at it. And this year you're saying learning to be more empathetic. I think that's something that we can all learn to try is have an empathetic
by
approach to
by
things.
COVID project, I just mean nothing with like these are my COVID songs because I
Uh-huh.
think I think when this is all said and done, I think the last thing people are going to want to hear back is, you know,
Yeah.
more of these. There was a rush to the isolation sessions, the COVID
Hmm.
sessions, man, those are going to be like trigger words for us by the time this is said and done. I don't want to be touring a record about isolation. I want to talk about waiting on the people again and being back and being fully enriched by living life and not taking it for granted. Again, the year of clarity. Look how easily we used to stand side by side and not wash our hands and
Hmm.
eat something from a drive-through, and like we could just become healthier through this, I think.
Yeah.
And so the next part is just digging even deeper into what I got going on here and telling more stories. And yeah, I'm happy that right now there's always something on the go. Is there something more coming? Of course there is. Yeah, I want it to be like that always. You don't get to 30 albums without doing the first couple, so that's where I'm at right now.
For sure. William, thank you so much for taking the time today and answering all of my questions. I know you were saying that you're distracted that the Geek Squad is coming to uninstall
Oh
your
no,
TV, but we
no
had a bit of
worries.
a Geek Squad today, just zoning in about songwriting. So
Oh, that's great.
I
Hope I didn't
appreciate
put anybody to sleep. That's all.
no, not at all. This is what we're here for. So I'm just going to jump to some of the audience questions here. The first one's from Tommy. He asked, "What inspires you to write songs?" I think we touched upon that a little bit. I'll jump to the next one if that's okay, Tommy. Matthew says, "Hi,
Just the
William."
people, like I say, people around me, presence, taking that B-roll. Everyday life is
Yeah,
fascinating enough. Yeah, everything inspires me.
yeah. Matthew asks, "Hi William, what songwriters slash musicians are you listening to these days?" We were talking about Rumors, Beatles.
Yeah, I'm always exploring the greats and learning from them. My buddy Coulter just put out a record. I've been listening to
Mm,
Coulter Wall's new record, the Western Swing. There,
hmm.
I'm always such a fan of him. Yeah, I'm really inspired by my peers. I like listening to people around me. Mike D. Kerr, my good friend, he just put out a record I'm listening to. Spring Garden Bandstand is really awesome. It's some of the finest guitar playing you'll hear. Again, keeping with that instrumental kind of feel where it just has the wheels turning. So yeah, I take
Mm.
time in that and like a lot of exploratory listening and listening back to, I guess, fill the holes in my knowledge.
For
So.
sure. I have a question. I can't see the person's name here, unfortunately, but they're asking, will there be an album about water and one about sky? You sort of alluded to that a little bit, eh?
Yeah, I think that's where we're headed. I think
Mm,
there's a cleansing to water, and that's where I've come now. If anything, to carry us through to, Reliever was really supposed to be my American debut, if you want to really get to the nitty gritty of it in a way, and I feel like
mm,
I need to do that over again. And I think with all things, a great reason and purpose, maybe I wasn't meant to be solidified in your big moment to arrive, whatever that is. I hope I never all the way make it. You should just continue making it of some variety, and that's the pleasure of this life and getting to write songs all the time. But yeah, just considering that, the never making it.
mm.
Jeez.
No, for sure. I think
Sorry,
you
Aiden.
answered. No, you totally answered it. Layla is asking. First of all, she said she appreciates the fact that you have struggled with confidence around your work, and that you took advice to allow your work to represent your true presence in a quieter way. Um, and then Layla goes on to say, "How do you marry and maintain all the loves in your life and still make and share music?"
Oh, well, they are the same, really. There's no subcategory to my life. I think everything breathes as one breath. I think of my love for my family, I guess, like I love and include songwriting in my everyday process. And like I say, I just truly enjoy it enough where the data collection turns into some other story. So yeah, they're always together, and I'm always conscious. Where
For sure.
they never asked to be the center of these stories either, so I try to respect them and where they're at. But it could be a great mom, sister, son, partner song every album, but maybe it's now where I've started to explore the concept of true fantasy. When you think of like Space Oddity by David Bowie, when you think of, paint me a picture of a totally foreign story just by imagination, the great Blaze Foley, like think of those kind of songs, like Willie Nelson, Gordon Lightfoot, like these great tales. Like that's what I'm exploring now a little bit more, I think. And I think that will kind of be pulling things from the air, you know, wherever we get to that point.
Absolutely. Linda Louise is asking, how often do you refine and rewrite? Is it every song, or are some just as they sit after the initial writing process?
Um, I think practice just evolves them. Hey, this could be better. This could be cleaner. I'm always envisioning what it's going to be like when you're under the microscope in the studio and there's you know, a mic on your hand. You should be able to play your song front to back with some proficiency and you know, it ain't the monkeys over here. It ain't the wrecking crew filling in. Like these are my friends, these are my collaborators, and we're doing as best a job to sound like human beings who are good at music. There's almost like I say, this different way of listening that's almost I say this sensitively as possible, like handicapping the ear in a way. Like we've become so used to this perfect production where it's like, man, we're losing the human aspect of music, and that's why it can all exist in its own lane. I'm so thankful for the folk community because you still feel and experience those real things like tempo. Listen to Adam Carroll. That's a great songwriter I love.
Tom G says, you said there's no songwriting magic to be found at the crossroads, but are there any sparks you use to get yourself started when it is not flowing easily?
I think it's all about setting your intention. It's just because it's funny. I think I'm always writing, and everything else is a time out from the writing, rather than, you know, I think the writing's almost always going. That's the worst answer to give someone who might be looking for, a boost from sitting somewhere. But uh, like I say, it's supposed to be a challenge. It's supposed to test you and want to make you get better. And no, I find I've really switched into embracing my early riser roots. Like, there's real power in that time before like 9 o'clock, before the world starts. So I've been getting up early and early, about 5:30 every day, and I wake up and then I just enjoy some non-phone time. It's still dark, sun's coming up. Align myself for the day, make coffee. I don't get to eat much right now. I'm on a very strict regimen to improve my health, and so, taking ceremony with what little things I do get to enjoy, whether that be food or other things.
For sure. And Janelle asks, do you ever think about creating in longer song forms, like a musical or multiple movement works of some kind?
Yes, I would love to be good enough to compose. I'd love to work on that sometime. I think I'm gonna write a great Disney song one day. That'd be like a huge badge. I'd love to do that. My partner, she's musical theater, so that's another cool avenue that I've gotten to experience lately is great musical works. I've always had an appreciation for it. I've only seen a handful of musicals, but most of them have come from being with somebody now who's interested in them. And so, man, there's great music out there. Like those are real stories. And I think of the moods. Like, gosh, you can go through every season, every feeling in like a 5-minute musical theater song, and it's like no room to rest. So I think of the challenge of that. Yeah, I wonder if one day it'll be okay for me to start putting out like 7-minute songs because a lot of them started that way, and it's just a lesson on trimming the fat and kill the baby is a term they use in theater where, writing a play and such to take this, oh man, every single word of this is the most meaningful thing. There's no way we could get rid of any verse, any word, and like having the honesty with yourself to let go of things and having enough confidence in yourself that more great things will come and don't get hung up here. I think this might be a refining question still, but like most of my songs, they can lay pretty much as they're born for the most part, and then over time practicing changes them a little bit. And I'm just really trying to stay sharp with my vocabulary. So sometimes no, I could do better than that. I could, you know, even getting conscious of syllables and sounds. Like we got a lot of e and ooh out there. It's a tough one. So trying to find different things and making words rhyme, stanzas, quatrains, triplets, all these different arrangements. That's what writing things down in the notebook helps with too. Because I'm like, you've written how many songs now that are 4 4 4 4 4? Like switch it up a tiny bit, or like, a lot of times it'll be like 12 lines of something, shorter chorus, and then like a whatever, like in the story song. So having that visual thing too kind of helps move the pieces around. And also, I found that it's been great separating creative and analytical time was a great freeing component. Like, um, you'll never get anything done if you throw it all away thinking it's not some future hit. Don't get hung up on that. You
Mm-hmm.
should write something and see it through, give it a chance to live because a couple times parts of things that I was just okay with blossomed into something I really loved.
Absolutely. Jesse's asking, I think this is a question on maybe the kind of headspace you're in when you're releasing a project. Earthly Days was heard by a lot of people. Was that a mostly organic approach from yourself to get it out there? And it was heard by many people through word of mouth? Or what was the plan you had to get the music heard? Was it a team effort, lots of PR campaigns? How did you get it heard?
Earthly Days started as a totally solo venture. Earthly Days came into the world just through a YouTube video that I made on iMovie, and that was my big release campaign, my strategy. I knew that good artwork counted, so I never skimped on that. I tried to really use whatever taste I have to make something serious looking, because if we're serious from day one, it'll just help along the way, like how people will take you as seriously as you present yourself and set your intention to. So and that's everything right down to the beginner songwriter saying, I might forget some of this song, or I might mess this up. Like, man, never announce a failure. Never give someone something to look for, a flaw in your performance. The world will come at you enough with that. And so Earthly Days was just like, finally here, I can die with an audio recording in the world. I didn't give up on my songs. I tried. It was just a personal satisfaction of having it out there. And then Dave McLeod over at NCI-FM put me on the National Aboriginal Countdown, now the Indigenous Music Countdown. And from there, I got satellite play through Sirius, and I was playing Festival de Voyageur in Winnipeg when a lady saw me there, and I made a joke about not having enough money to afford a phone. And she said, "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard, because you have enough talent to have a phone and more." And she took me from that place to, you know, getting the record somewhere else and submitting it to the Western Canadian Music Awards. And I got the Aboriginal artists, and that kind of just, puts a pin on the thing. Like, who's this name I've never seen? And let's investigate, and starts to build your rapport, I guess, and your place in amongst those people. And I say those people like they're not, a lot of great people that I've met, colleagues. You'll get out of this place what you put in, and I've, like I say, guided by the seven teachings of just with integrity and just being truthful and being honest and authentic. That's what's led me here. The truth is easiest to remember, and just like talk about that. That's all I can really do. And Neil Young again has a great saying. He says, "What I write and what sells are two totally different things. Where they meet is coincidence." And like, that's so freeing. Just,
Right.
you might surprise yourself at just how loved you can be. Trust me, happened to me,
Mhm.
you know.
And I think that's great, great advice, and something that just from my few years of experience in the industry as well, it's not necessarily about how many people listen to your music, it's about who listens to your music. So, you don't necessarily be too concerned about the numbers and the number of plays on your music. It
Yeah.
really is just about who, like you're saying, like you
You,
just
you
have to
can
be
never,
performing in front of people.
don't ever judge your journey by somebody else's. You'll drive yourself crazy doing that.
Mm-hmm.
There's resentment that can grow from that. There's confusion. It's all lateral violence in some form or another. Holding on to people in case that you might need them later. Like, that's not an authentic way to live. And just trying to avoid those things so that you will attract basically what you're about and what you're speaking. And I was trying to give thanks all the time, and more things happened to come about that I could give thanks for. That's the logic behind it, as far as I can tell. And yeah, not being really influenced by somebody else's place out there. Numbers, man. That you look at the numbers, like, who there are rappers out there today who have 30 to 40 million monthly listeners, and Tom Petty only has 9 million. Like, does that mean Tom Petty's not? That's not the measure of anything now. Like, I've always been interested in songs that won't decay, that will outlive me. This is a posthumous effort, and from that, it's that's why every word is important. That's why everything I say, I heard Gordon Lightfoot speak about his 220 recordings in the world, and you just take for granted that Gordon Lightfoot would have thousands, and you think of how hard it is to write a Gordon Lightfoot song, to have 220 of them. That's a life to be proud of. Like, so stick with your thing, and that's where all my songs kind of come from, I guess.
Absolutely. Jeffrey is asking, the growth between Earthly Days to Reliever includes songs focused from your past, example, The Carney, to song focus on the influence of the present, example, Leave It by the Sea. Is this a taking stock of your here and now, or is it something more deliberate?
Oh, totally. It's the Carney is a true story. Again, it's just about one of my best friends, and Leave It by the Sea is very much when I was just kind of breaking dawn with all the like really heavy stuff like going on in my life, and finally saying, you know, leave these things behind. Like they're weighing you down. It was literal too. Like I was staring out over the English Channel in Brighton in the UK, right at the point where Nick Cave's son fell to his death. That was the purpose of taking a walk that day, was to pay some respects. And I'm not a very cultural person. Like I don't practice tobacco giving or anything, but I was still a cigarette smoker, and I crumpled one in the wind as a small token of offering and say, I could never in my life imagine losing a son. And I think of my son and what he means to me. That'd be so heartbreaking. And I think of, I guess, just inadvertently thinking that Nick Cave still makes art and still goes on and was able to live through great hardship. And I was there in that place, and I thought, being sad about your dad being gone is never going to bring him back. It's just going to ruin what you could be giving to the people that are still alive. And crying about your son's mom and you not working out, hey, guess what? Parents split up all the time, and there are great children raised in multiple family homes who are arguably have extra love in their life. And stop thinking you failed because an unhealthy relationship, by whatever definition that is, wasn't working. So, Leave It by the Sea was a very crowning moment for me, where I could finally start turning the tide on these thoughts of I can let go of some of this stuff, and Leave It by the Sea then led itself to always have what we had. You know, again, more contemplation, more reflection on that this wasn't a waste, and that we'll always have the good. But yeah, those are definitely current statements. Like I say, you can ask about a point in time, and those songs I can put you to a year almost, I guess. And that's the beauty of the sonic documenting. You listen to Rumors, and apparently it's the craziest breakup, saddest, cheating lovers album, but it's just like some of it goes by you, and just like this is just great music, right? And that's what I'm doing, documenting my own stuff this way. And but Leave It by the Sea again is a very sad song in a sense that I'm finally letting go of this stuff in hopes of making room for good. And here we are, you know.
I just want to say as well, throughout our chat here, I'm answering questions that attendees are sending in, but there are so many people that are just, sending you best wishes and congrats. And I have a comment here, Jesse, saying that your first home show after lockdown was an incredible slowdown moment that had me in happy, thoughtful tears for a solid hour. Thank you. So just want to, say that we're getting all of your messages, and I just
Man,
sharing them over to William.
that's great. Thank you so much for listening. To anybody tuned in today, thank you for taking the time and being a part of this journey. I feel like I spent my whole career trying to avoid looking into the camera and doing the selfie video and things like that. And I don't know. I guess I'm not any less of the earth if we use technology to be together during this time. And so, yeah, we've adapted, and I'm thankful for anybody that's here listening. And honestly, you guys make it feel like you're listening to me more than ever. Like I feel like COVID has brought this extra attention to Reliever, whereas we'd usually be doing something else, and maybe it was the perfect time to release a chill record about healing and not panicking.
Yeah, 100%. We're winding down now, but again, just thank you so much. Linda's saying this has been invaluable. For the few people that I couldn't get to their questions, I apologize, but this whole recording will be up live later on, so you're going to be able to relive some of the gems that William was dropping through it the last hour and a half. Again, thank you so much for everybody tuning in, and William, once again, thank you so much to you specifically, and to FMO and to SOCAN and everybody. It's been an incredible healing. Speaking of healing, it's been an incredible healing chat just to really hone in on some of your songwriting expertise. And I'm sure everybody's going to be taking that home with them. So thanks so much again.
Thank you. Thank you, SOCAN and Aidan, for leading us through this. And that was a really great talk, and just what I needed a moment too. So it does wonders for me. And again, I feel you guys out there, and supporting what I do and growing this thing together. I'm trying to be here for the long haul. I'm trying to live long and make records for a long time, and happy to have what feels like such a growing, passionate number of people joining me. So, yeah, I'll never get tired of saying thanks for that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're going to say goodbye to everybody tuning in. Just to let you know again, if you didn't hear that last thing I mentioned, that this chat will be recorded and uploaded live later on. But everybody, wherever you are in the world right now, stay safe and healthy, and peace and love, guys. I guess I'll hopefully see some of you IRL at some point when we can. Bye now.
See you.